It reminds me a little bit of the story of Apple. They started with their computer that was basically for hobbyists, and then they made a step where they closed the box and they tried to make it available as a complete package. And that's the direction that we're certainly heading, and we're heading in that direction with world-class software partners.
You're listening to the Drone Radio Show podcast, the show about drones and the people who use them for business, fun, and research. Hosted by Randy Goers.
Hello, everyone. This is Randy Goers, and welcome to the Drone Radio Show podcast, episode 74. What does the next generation of UAV solutions look like? That's one of the questions we'll be exploring on this edition of the Drone Radio Show. Eric Freeman is CEO of Alpha Unmanned Systems, a Madrid-based manufacturer of the Sniper UAV, a small unmanned gasoline-powered helicopter with 2 hours of flight time. The company has clients throughout Europe and other parts of the world, and was the first company to have a helicopter UAV certified to fly in Israel. Eric is here to talk about Alpha Unmanned Systems, the Sniper UAV, the company's approach in meeting users' needs, and some of the trends shaping the industry today. We'll also get a glimpse of the European market for UAVs and services. So let's pick up the interview where I asked Eric to introduce himself.
Eric Freeman. I'm the founder, or one of the founders and the CEO of Alpha Unmanned Systems. We're a drone company based here in Madrid, Spain. We're a spin-off of an existing Spanish technology company that has 15 plus years of experience developing autopilots. And we commercialize and manufacture one product line. It's called the Sniper helicopter. And it's a gasoline-powered UAV that has an autonomy of approximately 2.5 hours and a range of about 30 to 40 kilometers. We started building this because we saw that there was really a niche in the drone UAS space for professional grade products that have longer flight times and greater autonomy. So we created this with all of the advantages of traditional helicopters, vertical flight and hovering capabilities. And we've discovered that there is indeed a growing market for products that are not battery operated and that can perform longer duration missions. We build these in Spain and we export these globally. We have clients from Indonesia to Israel and in Europe, and we're looking at new markets all the time and really looking to develop a distribution network of partners globally who can help us make the Sniper platform really a development and professional platform available to many different industries.
When you made the decision to build a helicopter, in addition to the flight time, are there other benefits over multi-copter systems?
Well, the flight duration is one of the key ones. The fact that this can fly for nearly 2.5 hours outperforms almost all quadricopters. Other advantages include its performance in adverse weather conditions. As a helicopter format, it can manage winds up to 30 knots and some light rain better than quadricopters traditionally can.
What type of missions have some of your customers been using the Sniper for?
It's still very varied. We have everything from doing wildlife surveys, flying infrared cameras at night to detect large game, to agricultural purposes where FLIR cameras are flown and different fruit maturity levels and sugar indexes can be measured remotely. We have that. We also have things like more traditional surveillance needs for military and security companies.
Getting back to the company, you said it started off as primarily as an autopilot company or producing autopilots?
The parent company, UAV Navigation, which is a Spain-based company with 15 years of experience, is a leader in autopilot development. And they developed 2 lines of hardware about 6 years ago. One was the original Sniper hardware platform, and another is a fixed wing called the Atlantic. And after a series of development steps and attempts to commercialize them, the company, the board really realized that their forte was in autopilots. And by being agnostic to hardware manufacturers, they could sell to everybody. And they felt that if they would pursue the two lines of hardware themselves, that they would end up competing with some of their own clients. So they took a step back, decided to retrench and refocus just on the autopilot, and they licensed the initial sniper design and the fixed wing design. We were created then to commercialize the sniper and to evolve it further. And now the current design looks similar to the original, although it's quite different and quite improved. And we focus just on the commercialization and global distribution of this helicopter UAV. What we found is when you look at the whole space, there are a lot of products out there in the quadricopter space with varying flight times of 15 to 45 minutes and different payloads. But we found that really for a whole wide range of professional uses, from everything from forest fire suppression to pipeline inspection to many agricultural uses to infrastructure inspection, building inspection. Many of these things are done optically. And that's where the longer flight time and the ability to hover really differentiate this product. And when we also looked at the marketplace and we saw lots of products available for $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, maybe even $10,000. And then there's a big step up into military grade UAVs. We found that, maybe we could build something with better quality carbon fiber components with better optics. And we work with some of the world's best camera companies, from Contrap in Israel to DST in Sweden. Maybe we could build a professional grade product that would be significantly higher than the residential consumer product, but much less expensive than traditional military hardware. And we've invested heavily in creating and improving the sniper platform. And what we see is that it's really a development platform, because we've focused a lot on the airframe itself and the mechanics, the electronics that it carries. But when more and more as the market evolves in Europe and in around the globe, and it's funny because it seems to happen more or less at a similar pace. Clients seem more and more interested in a complete solution for their specific requirements, which is normal, right? They've started to do this everywhere with all types of hardware and software together. So we started off a few years ago doing just this vertical flying platform that could be reliable and affordable. But we didn't start by paying much attention to specific industry requirements, and this is changing. So we're starting to work with more software developers to offer end user clients a complete solution targeting their needs. And an example of this is in the world of agriculture. When you talk to farmers and agricultural service companies, they know that UAVs will be increasingly used throughout their industries. But when you talk to UAV companies, they create devices that have different capabilities flying, but they're rarely integrated with the software component. That's where we've tried to take a step in this direction, and we're working very closely with leading agricultural research industries who are developing very interesting software with an eye towards offering really a joint solution, best of breed for the software and the hardware platform. And then the only component that's missing is the surface operator. So the Volcani Institute, which is one of Israel's oldest agricultural research institutes, is a partner of ours. They have very interesting software solutions. And by marrying their software with our vertical flight solution, it becomes really a nice product that can be offered with specific benefits directly to agricultural service companies or to very large-scale farming entities.
When you talked about some of the customization, are you customizing any of the hardware, or is it just customizing the software?
It's both. It's a lot of engineering work that goes into putting these together. There are many off-the-shelf components that can be purchased, but they have to be combined in optimal ways, both for weight reduction, for durability, and for function, kind of shared functionality with the other components of the system. So we assemble it in Spain. We source components from around the world, and we modify them when we have access to them.
And like you said, a client then is able to feel assured that the solution they're getting is really tailored to what they need, as opposed to trying to figure out
Correct.
what they're supposed to do with the copter after they get it.
Correct. I don't know. It reminds me a little bit of the story of Apple. They started with their computer that was basically for hobbyists, and then they made a step where they closed the box and they tried to make it available as a complete package. And that's the direction that we're certainly heading, and we're heading in that direction with world-class software partners like the Volcani Institute. Their software is excellent. Their algorithms are very good, and their user interface is very good. So if we can fly that in a reliable, affordable, professional fashion, then it's a real solution that somebody can buy without the requirement, or it can get beyond the research and development departments of large entities.
You're doing business in Europe. Which countries are you currently doing business in?
We can talk about a few of them. One of them is Hungary. And in Hungary, for example, it's a university has become a client, and they've purchased ours. They're using it for the large game surveys and counts. So like many places, it's funny, in the US especially, where large game hunting is popular, it is popular in Hungary as well. And yet they don't know how many large game are actually out there. They can see the results in the morning of, where deer have been and where wild boar have been. But it's hard to have an idea of how many licenses to grant every hunting season. So they're using our helicopters to fly at night and do nocturnal large game counts.
How about other countries?
In Spain, for example, there are some uses of the sniper for police purposes and for the Coast Guard. Really, it's still early stage, but it's something that will increase certainly over the next 3, 4, and 5 years.
I'm assuming that there's got to be some differentiation or some special challenges when you have to try to figure out what are all the rules with all the countries. Or is there a simple way of doing business?
It's funny, since Spain is part of the EU, selling to EU countries is much easier for us than selling outside of Europe. Outside of Europe, every time we ship outside of Europe, we need an export certificate, which has to be approved by the Spanish authorities. And that takes approximately a month, and we need an end user certificate to go along with that, where the end user is identified and the use of the sniper helicopter platform is specified, because it's considered double use material, both for civilian and for military. So when we actually are lucky enough to conclude a sale in Europe, it's much easier. There are certainly local flight regulations that must be adhered to, though that's the challenge of the buyer or the user who's using our sniper helicopters. I'm most concerned with the approval to export, and Europe is a non-issue in that respect.
When you say Europe is a non-issue in that, what do you mean by that?
Because it's one market, and any European client can buy it directly from us. In fact, one of our Hungarian clients drove to Madrid, attended training in Madrid for a week, and then drove back to Budapest with the sniper helicopter in the back of their van. That was great. Shipping internationally from Spain to Indonesia, for example, requires all the export permits, and that's a little bit more laborious in terms of the paperwork that's required. And it adds an extra month to the sales cycle and delivery cycle. But you're right in the sense that local regulations still differ from place to place. And that's the obligation of the end user client to know those and to abide by them. Line of sight flying is still something that's common throughout Europe. In many places, the 25 kilogram limit is also important. Our sniper helicopter weighs 14 kilos. So it's below this 25 kilogram UAV requirement, which appears in many national regulations. So we're also kind of exempt from more onerous UAV flight restrictions, though frequently they cannot be flown, certainly outside of line of sight and over populated areas. When we sell these to security entities like national police forces or interior ministries, they're interested in using them for perhaps crowd observation purposes. They're official government entities, and they manage the regulatory environment themselves. So it hasn't been an issue for us.
Has there been much interest in the sniper from some of the other countries that are outside of the European Union? Are you finding some international interest in your product?
Absolutely. There's a lot. It's funny because the internet is really a wonderful communication tool. And we've had clients contact us from from Taiwan to South America to Central America and from Indonesia. And they'll express some interest. We'll have a Skype conversation, maybe exchange a couple emails with regard to the technical abilities. They're always concerned about certifications and proof that this is a legitimate product and the company is a solid company. Sometimes they'll come and visit, but we've sold our helicopters sometimes almost entirely by internet. And when we can share with people that this is the first helicopter UAV certified to fly in Israel, that counts, regardless whether it's another Middle Eastern country, which may not appreciate the Israeli diplomacy necessarily, but they respect the Israeli Aviation Authority's certification process. And that speaks a lot towards the product quality and the documentation and the certification process. So we're very proud of that. And that's one of the tools that helps us introduce it effectively internationally.
Can you talk a little bit more about the process of getting into Israel? Only because I think here in the United States, we're not that familiar with what that means and the prestige that might carry with it.
Yeah, it's like, being proud of FAA certification for your product. The Israelis have just created a new category for helicopter UAVs. Previously, it was quadricopters and fixed wing, and they have a lot of experience. It's one of the two pioneers, along with the U.S., in UAV development. They have a lot of trained aviation engineers who know autopilots extremely well. And yet there was no helicopter UAV platform certified to fly there prior to the Sniper from Alpha. So this past summer in July, we had the pleasure of spending 4 days in a closed airspace demonstrating to Israeli aeronautical engineers that the Sniper helicopter is reliable and meets the technical specs that we said it did, that it can hover for, I think it was 2 hours of flight time, and that it has the range, has the duration, has the reliability, that the pre-checked flight plan as stated, and that, when you cut communications, that the autopilot brings the helicopter back and lands safely, and it does what it should. And it was quite an experience being out basically it was, an agricultural field outside of Tel Aviv with these engineers under 2 tents for a few days, making sure that everything worked as scheduled. And in the end, everything did. So we're very proud of that.
We're in this industry that seems to be changing constantly in terms of what people want and the products that deliver. As a manufacturer, how does Alpha stay ahead of all of those changes and still make sure they're producing a competitive product?
It's tricky. It's a very dynamic market space, and there's a lot of noise, and reality differs a little bit. We try to stay close to partners that have real experience. And that means some people in the military and police and security industries, and trying to stay involved with companies working a lot in the world of agriculture. We do what we can, and we're plugged into all the social media, not just to promote our own company, but also to learn from others what other people are talking about. There's a disconnect. It's reminiscent of the software world too, though. Companies talk a lot, and the reality is that when you actually investigate and see what's being done and what videos show, devices flying, there's a big difference. So there's much more talk than reality, but we certainly try to anticipate where things are going and not try to cover everything. I mean, it's a big world, and people they'll compare the Sniper product to a Parrot product, which is nice, but it's a different league of everything. And we try to focus on areas that we can add value. Things like firefighting suppression. In Chile, Chile is like California. They have a lot of forest fires. Global warming is something that makes these things burn hotter than ever before. And flying helicopters or manned aircraft into forest fires to direct your suppression efforts is tricky because the smoke is blinding and crashes can happen, and it's a dangerous environment to be flying in. If you can fly a Sniper into a heavy smoke environment and fly an infrared camera and detect the hot spots within that fire, some of those spots are burning hotter. If you can direct your fire suppression efforts at those, you may be able to save lives, save property, and extinguish the fire faster than otherwise possible. So that's a small niche, but it's an interesting opportunity to explore. And there are many others. It's not a platform that's designed to be everywhere, but there is a significant market opportunity for extended flight times, and for the payload that we provide is currently about 2.5 kilos. So if we can work with that, and if the duration is of interest, then yes, there are many applications that can be considered. But I think it's a mistake to talk about this being, a solution that fits all opportunities, because it's not, and nor can it ever be.
Somebody would ask you, what are the 4 or 5 applications that your platform is best suited for? Which ones pop off the top of your head?
Perimeter surveillance is one that is easy. It's easy to explain. It's of interest to many people. Flying an infrared camera at night is good. Flying a high-resolution camera during the day is good too. So surveillance is always one that's of interest. Infrastructure inspections, pipeline inspections is very interesting. The fact that you can fly over a fair distance, 20 to 30 kilometers, and that you can hover and inspect things in greater detail, that's of interest both for electric transmission lines and for oil pipelines. That's been mentioned many times. Wildlife protection, again, kind of similar to the surveys that I mentioned before in Hungary. That's something that is always of interest, flying infrared cameras largely at night. Forest fires, that's an interesting space, identifying the hotspots. And of course, agricultural inspection, flying FLIR cameras over a large crop area. A lot of southern Spain is covered with olive trees. And to the human eye, the leaves look silvery green from a distance. But if you look at them with a FLIR camera, you start to detect a lot of anomalies based on temperature, but they can demonstrate problems with irrigation, for example, or disease in a way that the human eye cannot detect. And the distances are significant. So this product lends itself well to that, both to large plantations, whether it's olives or other fruit trees like peaches and plums and apples, to certainly vineyards.
Is Europe making any progress on autonomous systems?
I think there's a lot of research and development going on. And the short answer is I'm not fully sure. I can speak for Spain, however, in that there's a lot of R&D taking place, but there's not that much local budget available. So we've really tried to focus on potential clients that have budget available. And as a startup company, we've been in business for 2 years, this is key for us. So we're delighted to talk about the advantages of autonomous systems in different types of UAVs forever, but we're more interested in prioritizing those conversations with clients with the money, the authority, and the need to move forward.
When you look out in the future, where do you think the industry is going, and how does Alpha fit into that vision?
I think there'll be more and more complete solutions offered for end user clients. The UAV hardware will be married or offered with specific industry software solutions, for mining, for agriculture. I think that's a smart thing. And then I think in terms of actual manufacturers, there'll probably be a consolidation. Right now, there are a lot of small quadricopter manufacturers everywhere. And some are getting pretty good, but it's difficult to get distribution. It's difficult to get really significant market share. I think you'll see a lot of consolidation there. And I think you'll see a development of more professional sized devices with professional level capabilities, meaning longer flight durations and longer ranges. We're always interested in the U.S. market and exploring U.S. market opportunities. We've had some conversations, but not that many.
What is it that you need, you think, that would help open up that business?
I think it's there. I think it's just, we have to be more present in the U.S., and I think there are a lot of opportunities to explore. One of the things that's interesting of the U.S. is, on the surveillance side, there are many different potential clients. In emergency response, there are some interesting potential clients. We've tried to focus, I suppose, on smaller, faster opportunities. But the U.S. market is something that's very much of interest to us, and we'll be looking at that much more closely. I think the western part of the U.S., especially with regard to forest fires, that's an interesting opportunity in agricultural uses, but we have yet to really put our foot into that market. We're always more successful when we can show our sniper flying. And so we love to invite people to Madrid to have them see it, try it, and get a sense of its actual flight capabilities. And once they do that, then we can talk about the rest of the relationship building. Because with each of our clients, and certainly with international distributors, it's all about building a strong foundation for a relationship that can grow over time. This market is still very young, and it has a long way to grow.
That sounds like a good way to end it, but I'll give you the opportunity if you want to have a final comment.
Thanks, Randy. Alpha is a dedicated developer and manufacturer of a reliable and professional grade vertical flight UAV. We're delighted to invite you to Madrid, show you how the sniper performs, and explore opportunities to work together. We'd be delighted to share with you our learning and what our product development team has been able to create.
That's it for episode 74 of the Drone Radio Show. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Eric Freeman of Alpha Unmanned Systems and learning about the Sniper UAV and gaining some insights into the European market. I want to thank Eric for taking the time to speak with me. If you want more information on Alpha Unmanned Systems or want to connect with Eric, check out the website at alphaunmannedsystems.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a positive review on iTunes. It really does help. And as always, I hope you'll listen to more episodes of the Drone Radio Show podcast to hear how others are using drones for business, fun, and research. For the Drone Radio Show, I'm Randy Goers.
This has been the Drone Radio Show podcast. More information on today's show can be found on our website at www.droneradioshow.com. If you're using drone technology for business, fun, or research and would like to share your experience on the show, please visit our website and fill out a guest appearance application. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media channels.